Michael Johnson was once one of the fastest sprinters in history, still holding 13 of the top 100 times for the 200-meter sprint. Having been one of America's top athletes, Johnson has considerable influence in the sports world, which he's now making use of, as he calls for athletics chiefs to try and update the sport for a new generation. We'll be covering that and more in today's video. First off, Johnson wants change. Michael Johnson has been professionally involved in the athletics world ever since he was 19 years old, starting back in 1986. 5 years later, he would go on to win his first world title by winning the 200-meter sprint at the World Championships in Tokyo. He would go on to win many more before he finally retired in the year 2000. It's safe to say that he's played a huge part in bringing attention to track and field events in America and the entire world, both when he was active and after he retired. He was almost as influential as Usain Bolt is to the current generation. Unfortunately, Bolt's also been retired for some time, and the reach of sprinting events is starting to wane. Apart from the loss of star power, there's also the recurring issue of doping scandals that have damaged the sport's credibility. That's why Johnson decided to step in and plead to officials to do something to bring the sport back up to its former glory. Part of what Johnson wants is for officials to be more active in ensuring that they do what needs to be done to get the platform required to promote the sport. To that end, he wants organizations to take cues from what's being done with other sports to increase their reach and how compelling the sport is to new audiences. Next, learning from the PTO. Johnson's been in the professional athlete world for quite some time, so it's safe to say he knows a bit of what works and what doesn't when it comes to engaging audiences. He was himself a star of the sport, someone that the world couldn't help but watch, so athletics authorities could benefit from listening to what he has to say. In particular, Johnson brought up the example of the PTO, or the Professional Triathletes Organization. The PTO has begun settling up a series of events around the world, similar to how the PGA Tour or tennis tours are run. The events will be the stage for competition between the best triathletes in the world. Not only are they hosting multiple events globally across a single season, but they also have major television deals in place for global coverage. On top of that, each event will have prize money, the likes of which no other has seen before. Johnson wants to see something similar done for the track and field world. Johnson believes that the sport isn't actually in need of more superstar athletes because they're already around. The problem is just that the sport isn't shown to audiences in a way that lets these athletes shine. The rarity of these huge names like Usain Bolt is because the media only occasionally latches on to individuals. If the sport is to thrive, the focus needs to be on how it's presented to audiences, not on the individuals. Moving on, the issue and the solution. As we mentioned before, Johnson believes that too many people subscribe to the idea that the problem is a lack of star power in track and field. What the PTO is doing for triathlons is exactly what they need in track and field, because the focus is entirely on the sport and on the competition. The sport needs people that can show it in a new way that's compelling for a new generation. The media needs to be able to tell the stories that are ever present in the sport, as they are with all sports. And to do that, they also need to have accompanying events that are suited to the medium. He also brought up Usain Bolt as an example in the case of the sport's falling engagement levels. He began by saying that Bolt was probably the biggest star ever, with millions of people tuning in to see him. However, once Bolt retired, things fell off once more. That shows that relying on an individual isn't sustainable for a sport. People need to love the sport first, and love for the athletes will follow after that. He concluded his discussion on how the organization of these sporting events needs to be changed by saying that it's up to the sport to make stars out of the athletes, not the other way around. Lastly, Johnson after retirement. Apart from discussing the future of the sport, Johnson also opened up about his life after retirement during this interview. Many athletes suffer a huge lull in their lives after playing at the highest level in their sport, followed by retirement at an age that would be considered young in any other professional field. However, Johnson has been more fortunate than most, having made an extended career as a broadcaster, as well as using his status as an athlete to promote other business projects. Johnson himself said that every elite athlete knows that no matter what they do, once their professional athletic career ends, they'll never reach the height that they did when they competed. For some, that's a major problem, and he admits that he's been fairly lucky when it came to having a life after leaving the track. Though he admits that anything in life that comes afterward would pale in comparison to standing atop the podium at the Olympic Games, he said he was okay when he retired. He managed to do all the things he wanted to do in the sport even after retirement. He's been a pundit for the BBC for 20 years now, and he's even started his own training organization called Michael Johnson Performance, which looks to help up-and-coming athletes improve themselves and compete at a higher level. It's clear from the way he's lived his life that Johnson truly cares about the sport, so perhaps it could benefit from his suggestions. In other news, starting off, the University of Kentucky honors Jim Green. Last week, the University of Kentucky, or the UK, released a press statement regarding the naming of a new track and field facility built on its premises. The statement noted that the facility would be named the Jim Green Indoor Track and Field Center. It was named in honor of Jim Green, the first African-American student athlete at Kentucky to win NCAA and SEC championships. The naming of the facility took place on the same day as the release of the statement when it was approved by the UK Board of Trustees. Green had earned All-American honors 6 times and had won 8 SEC individual events, indoor 60-yard dash in 1968 and 1971. When he'd heard about the decision to name the facility after him, Green was elated. He said that it was a great honor and thanked the university for everything that they'd done for him in the past. And now with this decision, the new facility was primarily funded by contributions from Joe and Kelly Kraft, who had pledged around $7.5 million to be directed towards its construction. They were also the ones that had recommended the name of the facility. Next, Martin Maric joins USC Track and Field. Martin Maric is the current Croatian national record holder in the discus, with a mark of 2:22:10. He represented Croatia in discus events in both the Beijing Olympics in 2008 and the London Olympics in 2012. He finished 29th at the former and 17th at the latter. He was named Croatian Athlete of the Year for his efforts in London. Apart from his efforts at the Olympics, he also participated at the World Championships in 2011. Now, after coaching several athletes in Virginia to NCAA championship titles, as well as All-American honors, he's making his way to the University of Southern California to serve as the assistant track and field coach for the throws. The news was announced last week by the director of track and field and cross country, Quincy Watts. Maric has firsthand experience competing at the collegiate level, having taken an NCAA title himself back in 2009 for discus when he competed in California. He was also given All-American honors for discus in 2008, as well as the javelin throw in 2007. It's safe to say that USC has picked up a great asset in Maric for upcoming seasons. Lastly, Jacobs ends the season in style. Last week, Marcel Jacobs participated in an untimed exhibition race on a special track prepared near the coastal town of Azzurro-Caorle. The event was staged in honor of the success Jacobs and his Italian teammates had had over the last 14 months. Jacobs himself had picked up the 2022 World Indoor Championship title for his 60-meter sprint and also picked up gold at the European Championships following his performance in the 100-meter sprint at the event. The race was hosted by the Veneto region and the municipality of Caorle, and it was the first time that Jacobs had raced since the European Championships. That's a wrap for this video. Do you think Johnson's suggestion makes sense? Let us know in the comments below. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more videos like this. See you in the next one.